I'm Max Sandlin. I'm a theologian who loves art.
I'm Tessa Davidson. I'm an artist who loves theology.
And this is Our First Word.
Theology of Beauty.
What we're talking about today is whether or not beauty is objective or subjective. Now, I'm just going to say, as soon as I said that, your body language in your eyes went to, we're starting. But we're just having a conversation. That's all that's happening here. So Tess, when I teach at Honor Symposium, one of the things that I do is a lecture or a class debate about whether beauty is objective or subjective. And you do something like this in your visual aesthetics class?
Yes, we have this discussion.
How does it go when you as Dr. Youngblood and you do it together? What do y'all talk about?
Well, we open up the question of, do we think that beauty is merely in the eye of the beholder? And we wrestle through that, because most students, when they come in, they would say, we think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And these are art students, design students that are dedicated to making beautiful things. And
it's subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder.
So yes, I think that's their impulsive response to that question. But then if you press them, or if you try to poke at that, or really get underneath that question, some of the other things that they say seem to fly in the face of that.
Yeah, I think it's hard. Maybe we should define the terms at the beginning here. To be objective means that a property adheres in an object. That is, beauty is in the work of art, or the sunset is beautiful. It's not merely I feel something when I look at the sunset. Subjective means that we're describing the experience of a perceiver. So I was thinking about this morning, and the relationship between this, is beauty objective, subjective? Is anything objective, subjective? You know, there's all these philosophies. Yeah. Probably everyone's heard of the old riddle, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, no, it doesn't. If you define sound as the perception of vibrations in the air.
It's like sensory experience.
Yeah.
If that's what's rooted in that.
If that's what we mean
definition.
by sound, but that's not usually mean by sound the actual vibrations. And then our ear is a sort of like, receptor that picks up on those and interprets those in certain ways. In that sense, the sound waves are objective. Our experience of that's a tree crashing sound is a subjective interpretation of those airwaves.
Yes. So the truth of the thing lies in the subject. Versus the truth of the thing lies in the object itself.
Yeah.
So if I were to say, I like chocolate ice cream is the best, that's me making a subjective claim.
You're describing your experience of chocolate ice cream.
Versus this is chocolate ice cream. And that's more of the truth of that statement lies in the object itself.
Do you think chocolate ice cream's the best?
Oh boy, we're just getting into it right now. Given the options of vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate, I mean, I know it does depend on the brand, but
what if bourbon pecan?
I would choose.
They have a bourbon pecan at Soda Jerk that's fire.
Yes. Already we're jumping into this debate of subjectivity, and some of it depends on the time of day, how I'm feeling, the particulars of the situation. And so I don't know if I could just make a statement of, chocolate is always the best for me at all times, but
that's a good point. It seems to be subjective because, well, right now chocolate's the best, but tomorrow peach might be the best.
Right.
Or if I've had chocolate 5 times.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then the question of, is beauty objective or subjective, is harder. Because lots of times we use the word beauty to just mean I like it.
Yes.
Right.
And that is how we're using that term. And so that's why naturally, this idea of thinking through, is beauty subjective or just merely in the eye of the beholder? I think that's why we have that gut impulse to respond in such a way, because that's how we talk about beauty.
Yeah, but it's funny. I know historically that's a new phenomenon. You had this field of aesthetics, or even like artists for years would talk about beauty adhering or being in the natural world or the piece of art or a person or whatever. And that shift seems to happen with modernity.
Yeah.
And that's all of philosophy, the subjective turn in philosophy and theology and aesthetics and literature, all these things happen at the same time. And there's so, like, our culture is very primed. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is subjective. It just means I like it. But then if you like pay attention to our actual language, like the construction of our words.
We don't talk about it like it's subjective.
That's exactly right.
We're just merely opinion or just something that we experience in our own world. We make objective, like, truth claims over beauty, and we talk about it in a way. So it's just crazy to me that the popular opinion is so out of step with the majority of thinkers throughout history.
Yeah,
so how
and
did we
out
get
of step
here?
with our language. Like, that's a funny thing.
Yeah.
Someone will say, "Oh, that sunrise was beautiful," and you say, "Do you think it really was beautiful, or do you just mean you like it?" "Oh, of course, I only mean that I liked it because beauty's in the eye of the beholder." Well, why didn't you say that at first? Why doesn't our like linguistic constructions, why don't they match what we think is true? It's sort of like we say the sun rises in the east, and then, some physicist or astronomer or whatever says, well, no, actually the earth is spinning. Why didn't you say the earth spins, on its axis? I think that's what we imagine is going on, but it is relevant that it's very hard to talk about beauty as if it is mere taste or preference. Okay, but let's ask this. Are there good reasons to think, I think you and I are both going to come out on this and say beauty is objective. For a variety of reasons. We have to say that. But what are the best arguments? I don't want to straw man the subjective side. There's something to this, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, what are the best reasons to say it is in the eye of the beholder? It is subjective. What are some that maybe you come up with, you guys say in your class, or that you think of yourself personally?
I mean, one thing that I struggle with, and I think that I hear from students all the time, is our tastes are so different. Like, how do we deal with the fact that we all have so many different opinions about this?
Yeah.
The fact that somebody might like country music or rap music, or you might find this one person attractive and the other person's like, what are you seeing?
The old hot or not question.
Yeah. So
remember that episode of The Office? Yes. Remember the one I'm talking about? They come in and they're having this huge debate about Hillary Swank.
Hillary Swank, yeah.
Hillary Swank, for our younger listeners, is an actress who was famous in the early 2000s, and I don't really think is doing much anymore. But for young people, Emma Claire, for you, you might say Adam Driver, right? Is Adam Driver a beautiful man or not? The listeners can't see the face that was just made, so we'll leave it up, in mystery. But people are divided about it.
Yeah. They
disagree strongly. And we've all had that experience, right? It's most objective things we don't disagree about. If I said, did Pearl Jam open that song with an E chord or with the word unsealed? I guess in a Pearl Jam song, seal, it's not as easy to tell, but those are objective things about Pearl Jam music. Is it good? We disagree. Though we shouldn't. Pearl Jam's very good.
Yeah. When it comes to the aesthetic judgment, there does seem to be a variety of opinions when it comes to taste. So that's something that comes up quite a bit in this discussion of subjectivity, because we're experiencing it differently at different moments in our life. And so, that's something that I think is the first objection to thinking about beauty as subjectivity.
If we were listing them, the first one, and I think you're right, this is not only the first one we think of, but the most compelling is we disagree. People disagree with each other about this, and even, like you said, with ourselves, like things that we thought were beautiful. I mean, you're an artist. Surely there's some piece of art that early in your career, early in your life, you were like, this is the best, and now you're like, trite.
Yes, I've seen that within myself. My aesthetic tastes have shifted, and also swinging the other direction. I can get so worked up and moved by an aesthetic encounter that I have with a work of art or an encounter with beauty, and then I'll try to share this with somebody else, whether in my family or a student in class, and it falls flat. They're not swept away with me. They don't seem to get it. And so then it makes me think, well, is this just in my head, or, what is it happening?
Something
with
wrong
this
with
experience?
me, something wrong with them. That kind of thing.
And why is it that we can't all rally underneath this together or see it in the same way? So, I mean, that type of experience seems to point to the subjectivity of beauty for some reason.
Tell me a story, like a particular one. I mean, that's, we can imagine, but you're saying no, this piece, I saw it, and then I told somebody, and they couldn't say it. Tell us a story.
Okay. I'm calling out my husband on this. So the other day, we were walking by, there's this plant outside of the Heritage. And for whatever reason, when I was walking by it a few weeks ago, on the way to a parents' meeting this summer, it grabbed me by the arm, the way the lighting hit. It was blooming, and
Is it a tree, you said?
No, it's this little bush with, these leaves just perfectly symmetrical and blooming and bursting with life. And it just stopped me. It arrested me. I paused right there. I literally was moved to tears. And then I shared it with my class. I was like, this was amazing. And I took a picture of it. And so a few weeks later, I say, TJ, let me share with you this experience that I had. And he goes up to it and he said, there's a bunch of weeds. What are you looking at?
Poor TJ.
And I kind of got angry with him.
Yeah.
That he wasn't taken up by this experience that I had.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, in that moment that we were experiencing it, it didn't seem to shine and move me in the same way that it initially did. Mm-hmm. And so in some ways, beauty seems transient. It seems to kind of pass, and there seems to be a fluidity in which we experience it. It's almost like a bar of soap in the hands. It's slippery. You can't get a hold of it and try to make this, scientific, cold, rational case for how it moves you. And so I think that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great story too. It moves from the first one. You saw it and thought it was beautiful. TJ saw it and did not think it was beautiful.
Yeah,
we
and
disagree.
He saw the weeds too.
Yeah.
I had not seen that.
Yeah, he saw something else that you didn't see.
Right.
But we disagree about beauty seems to be one pretty good argument for it's pretty subjective.
Yeah.
Because look, we disagree about it. We don't tend to disagree about objective things like which way is east or what color the plant was or whatever. Right. But then the second thing, just as you were telling the story, you kind of articulated another objection that was it changes.
Yeah.
When you went back and saw it with TJ, you didn't see it the same way you saw it before.
Yeah.
So whereas the color blue is the color blue whether I'm happy or sad or, whatever.
Yeah.
But Dvorak's New World Symphony, I just love. I think it's this great piece of music. But if I've got a splitting headache, it's not beautiful.
That's the last thing you want to hear.
It's not just it's beautiful and it hurts my head.
Yeah.
I don't even hear it as music. It's just noise. Or, something I can remember when I was in junior high, I went on some church trip and we were in Colorado. And, the first time you encounter kitschy stores or roadside stands, where it's a very touristy kind of place. And we went in and it was like a Thomas Kinkade shop. The whole shop was Thomas Kinkade.
He used to be my favorite artist at age 15.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So I was probably a little younger than that, but I'm like, whoa. And it has a cross in every one and also a little mountain cottage. And I was like, this is unbelievable, so spiritual. And now I'm like, oh, this is kitschy and derivative. And it's why is there a cross and a mountain cottage in Appalachia? What is this? What's happening here?
Have you seen the ones with all the Disney princesses inside of them?
I have not. I didn't know that existed.
Yes, Kinkade merged with Disney. We've got a whole line.
He knew how to market it. But yeah, I experienced it as beautiful then, and now no offense, Thomas Kinkade, if you're listening, but now I don't only not experience it as beautiful, I experience it as unattractive. Right? I look and I'm repelled by it as opposed to drawn to it.
Wow. And what a swing,
Right.
The fact that you can see something as being so beautiful and now you're...
That's right. But if I look at a yardstick when I was 4 years old, it might have seemed taller to me because I was small, but it was still, 36 inches when I was 4 years old, 36 inches when I was 20 years old, and it's 36 inches today. It doesn't change. It's objective. The height or mass of the object has a permanence that doesn't seem to be their beauty.
Yeah.
So not only do we disagree about it, but our own perceptions of it change. That seems like a second sort of objection to it.
And even when we try to, in our culture, put some type of measure or standard on it when it comes to physical attractiveness.
Yes.
There are so many wounds that brings about. When we think about beauty standards and just speaking as a woman, when it comes to body type or hair color or skin color, or we think about class divisions and how the wealthiest seems to be able to call the shots. What is the beautiful? And so there are all these kind of objections to how beauty is weaponized when it tries to become this standardized thing, or when culture dictates those terms.
Yeah, and I think we feel that strongly with people. Like even like that, I remember someone saying in the office, you couldn't make it again today. Like they're objectifying Hillary Swank in that scene. Yeah. And they're saying, is she or not? And, if you watch it in kind of a post-Me Too or a feminist kind of moment, you're like, why is this whole show objectifying this woman? She didn't ask them for their opinion on her beauty. She's a talented actress, like an Academy. Come on.
Yeah.
But it also seems naive to imagine that we don't, find people attractive, but it's not always because of the shape of the person's face or all those different, characters you mentioned. It's also the culture is dictated to you that this is the standard
they're
of
calling
beauty.
the terms.
Right. So, I love Peter Paul Rubens, the artist, and Rubens' characters are, when you see them, they are not the sort of image of the beautiful woman that would have been popular in 1995.
Right.
Right. When Kate Moss and the waif look is in, Rubenesque women are out. And now there's a swing back the other direction. Right. And that's a switch. It shouldn't change that much.
Yeah, all of these
if it's
trends,
objective.
Yeah, that keeps shifting. It points to that maybe beauty is subjective.
Yeah, it just feels like fashion. Like my office,
whims.
I painted my office kind of dark green this summer, and someone walked in and they're like, "Oh, it's like 1991 in here."
Oh.
Well, I mean, that was a popular color in
right.
1991. Yeah, it was. And like in 10 years, maybe I'll paint it red and gold, like was popular, later on that. But I think the green's beautiful. Like I just think that green is beautiful, even though someone might see it and say that's merely fashionable or not fashionable, as the case may be. So it's another case of like shifting fads. And it's not that like in 91 there was something going on that was like green is like we had a better quality of green paint or something then.
Yeah.
It just was that the magazines and the TV shows and such said, why not do dark green?
Yeah.
And this year, or whatever year now, they're saying, why not do something else? And we go, oh, well, that must be beautiful because, like you said, it's commodified, it's weaponized, it's the elites control this sort of stuff, or power rebellions come along and make something new, and the elites say it's not beautiful, and so as a rebellion against them, you say, yes, it is. That's kind of what happened, like rap music's kind of like that. Yeah. It started out sort of a playful joke, and then became like a fist-shaking sort of rebellion, and now, it's like, there's also this like poetry happening here.
Yeah.
Really elegant, beautiful poetry and this bricolage kind of style that musically is really creative and exciting and beautiful, but still lots of people, can't see it or whatever.
Yeah. And what's mixed up in all of this is also these kind of social signaling. I'm a part of this group. And so, when my children want to wear this kind of brand, they find it beautiful, but it's hard to untether what they're trying to signify like in their peer group or identifying with this kind of group. And so I think that is also mixed up in the trends and what we find attractive at a certain time in history.
Do I like black leather or do I want to fit in with my goth friends or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay. So how do you do that?
Oh, yes, I have to.
But I know this about you, Tessa, you almost never have, like I said before, you tend to dress like the canvas. You tend to do solid colors.
Yep.
And sort of neutrals and that kind of thing, and not branding or this image. You don't dress like flamboyantly like a lot of artists do.
Yeah.
What's that about?
I think it might have more to do with my personality, that I'm more introverted. I don't want to be a focal point in any given room. Like I don't want the attention on me. That. So when I'm making a painting, if I want to create a focal point, then I would have texture and bright colors and those types of things. So I would rather not be a focal point in the midst of a conversation, whereas maybe you might think differently about how you want to be perceived or experience life.
I remember for a while I was wearing bow ties to work. I started wearing bow ties, and then I had other colleagues that started wearing bow ties. And I was like, oh, no. I'm not part of the bow tie gang. I'm out. And I don't wear them. I don't wear them anymore.
Oh, okay.
So even like choosing not to wear it was social signaling.
Yeah.
Okay, all of which we are wandering afar, but all of which is related to what we think of as beautiful changes depending on context, culture, all that stuff. Sure makes it seem subjective.
So there's a case to be made for how beauty seems to be subjective.
Yeah. I got one more too.
Oh,
but
okay.
Did you have another one?
No, go for it.
Okay, here's one more. And I'm interested to hear you talk about this because you do teach design principles.
I do.
Roger Scruton, in his little book on beauty, A Very Short Introduction, says there is no secondhand experience of beauty. Now, you're an art teacher and an artist, an art historian, and part of your job in art appreciation is to take people in this class and they look at something and they don't think it's beautiful, and you want to train them to see that it's beautiful. Isn't that part of the work?
That is.
To appreciate it, right?
Exactly.
And yet you can't argue them into it. Like you can't present an argument that a neutral observer can read, hear, understand, and go, oh, I thought it wasn't beautiful, but now I see you're right, it is, based on these reasons.
Yeah, the way one could argue with logic when it comes to a math equation, this is how we arrive at this fact, and then like slam dunk argument, there's no objections to be raised to that.
Yeah, right. I mean, like for objective things in reality, usually there are standards of argumentation that yield consistent results. Scientific method, right? You do this experiment in France, you do it in Cambodia, you get the same result. How do you get somebody to like to appreciate the beauty in a piece of art that they didn't appreciate beforehand? How do you go about doing that?
Well, I think what you're touching on is what I love about beauty, but also it is a frustrating aspect of it. But I love it because we have a variety of tastes. We have this subjective personal experience with a thing. And we're taken up and we're drawn into it in this moment. And what all of that does is it dignifies our free will, the fact that we are autonomous beings, the fact that we see the world differently than anybody else. And so beauty encounters that, and it's right there in the middle of that subjective experience. But at the same time, when it comes to me trying to point to the objective beauty of the thing itself, a way that I draw somebody into that is not through trying to make some kind of cold, sterile argument. In the same way that God doesn't try to present his beauty and his being in a way that kind of forces us to be, to accept that.
Oh, that's interesting.
He dignifies us as human beings, and so draws us in through, being attractive to us. And so
through rhetoric too, right?
Right.
The word.
Yeah. And by telling a better story. And so I guess for me as a designer, trying to draw people in and I guess trying to refine their taste. I see it as like a refining of one's taste. Like when my kids were little, they might have liked chicken nuggets, but the more I give them exposure to better foods and to get, quality foods, the more their tastes have been refined. And sometimes it's just through repeated exposure, also just sharing of experiences. And if people can hear me talk about my experiences with a thing, then they're more sensitive to what's happening within them. I think it's so easy for us just to kind of be kind of numb to aesthetic experiences and just not be paying attention at all. But the more we're tuning in and we're more sensitive and paying attention, I think the more we can encounter beauty in a personal way. So,
and that's interesting. The theological thing you can imagine I get excited about. Like, oh yeah, God doesn't give us a sort of like apologetics notwithstanding, there's not some sort of proof. Genesis doesn't open with like, here are the 4 ways you can know God, the way that like Aquinas does in the Summa or something.
Yeah.
God reveals himself to us as himself, and then we have to kind of, figure it out. It's like making an argument to somebody that they should fall in love with you. That's not the way to do it.
Connection.
So yeah, we disagree about it, and it changes over time, and you can't argue somebody into it. We didn't mention this, but another one you might mention is that you can't measure it apart from a person. Like a spectrometer, a device can tell us what color something is, and a colorblind person is like, oh well, okay, I take the spectrometer's perception as more accurate than my own. But we got no beautyometer that we can put on something. We We only experience it as subjective beings.
Yeah.
And that's relevant. But I think that your point about God is a nice pivot to talk about why you and I think that this is not a subjective thing. Certainly our subjective experience is involved in it.
Yeah.
Just like I don't know about color apart from my subjective experience of it, but the color adheres in the thing itself. That's how I feel about beauty too.
It's like it's got to be this vehicle through which we experience the beauty, but our subjective experiences are merely the vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I've heard you talk about this before, Tess, when you talk about like design principles or that these are some sort of evidence for objectivity.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
So if you were to like peek behind the curtain and look into any artist's, studio or listen to any critique or things like that, all artists talk about the design principles. These are not cold scientific facts, but it's what guides our process. I have a first draft and a second draft and a third draft, and all along the way as I'm making improvements, I am improving it using design principles like balance, symmetry, asymmetry, having rhythm and movement, emphasis areas, being able to create harmonies. And so all of these things are driving all of my decisions. And I find that the more I adhere to these kind of shared, agreed upon principles, that actually you can improve your work. This is why, I can critique my students' works and they can improve them in general, just being able to, just the fact that an artist can improve a design by using these design principles, it does seem to point to the fact that there's something outside of just merely the designer's opinion. We have to appeal to a standard outside of ourselves. Yeah,
and it seems relevant to me. Like if I were pushing back on that, I'd say, well, who are you to tell these people this is better or worse? Or who is Michelangelo to tell us who's better or worse? Can't a creative genius break all the rules and do something amazing? And isn't that actually what genius artists, frequently do, is they break from these principles and do something different? But on the other hand, I think there's something right about saying anybody who is talking about beauty can't help but talk about it in degrees, right? Which implies a standard, whether we're very good at knowing what the standard is or not.
Exactly.
And I think that's pretty relevant to the objective point, a way of like kind of answering some of the strongest arguments for the subjective point of view is to say it's like color blindness. We're not very good at seeing beauty, but that's not a problem in the nature of beauty. Yeah. That's a reflection on what we are as people. We're kind of blind to it often, and that's why we disagree so frequently, because we're not very good at seeing it. And that's why it changes over time, because we're not very good at seeing it. And that's why, that blindness that comes theologically because of our brokenness or because of the finitude of time. The example, right, that I can't appreciate Dvorak when I've got a headache. Well, yeah, but the problem is in me and my headache and my ability to see. The same way a camera can't catch the light if I put a lens cap over it. The problem's not in the sun or the lighting. The problem is in the receiver. So that seems like a relevant point, that even if we disagree about what the standard for beauty is, we aren't very good, or it's not really possible for us to talk about beauty as if there were no standards.
Right.
All of our languages have a concept of beauty, and if we have a concept of beauty, we have a concept of more and less beautiful.
Yeah.
And that already points to a standard. If you're a theologian listening, you're thinking, this is Aquinas' argument from degree for the existence of God, which is actually kind of what we're arguing for.
Yeah.
Right? Is that if we think beauty is objective, we don't think it's like something, it's not the sort of thing that height or mass or acceleration is, just merely a physical property. It's a spiritual property. It's almost a reflection or a shining forth of God himself, who is beauty.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, maybe before just to touch on something you said earlier, I was just thinking about, this main objective of taste and how our taste often shift. I think one of the problems happens is when we try to put on an objective standard and compare apples with oranges. I think fittingness is really important, or thinking about the particulars of a situation, because you might have one color that maps on perfectly in this situation, or one typeface that works with this particular situation, but not in this other. And so I think it always is, you have to be paying attention to the particulars of that setting, but I've had students that say, well, I don't like rap music. But that's not to say that all rap music is equally valid. You can have
equally beautiful. There still could be better or worse.
Exactly.
Even if it's not your preference.
And so even though your tastes haven't been refined for that particular thing, and there's so much that is attached to taste based on our experiences, both positive and negative, our exposure. So that's very complicated. But just because that's complicated and that has shifted, that doesn't mean that once you do refine your taste, that those standards aren't out there within that particular thing. But yeah, you had alluded to how really when we think about God as a standard of beauty, there's something that a scholar named Natalie Carnes said. She said that God is beautiful, but we must not deify our definitions of beauty because we are broken. And we often will have flawed understandings of what the beautiful is. Yeah. And I think this comes out in our flawed standards and this
is our brokenness, our sinfulness.
Right. Yeah. And the boxes that we try to create and say and label and say, well, this is what it means to be a beautiful, attractive person.
Or a beautiful piece of art or music or whatever.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. We often see through the glass dimly, and we have a broken and flawed and distorted view sometimes of beauty. And so we have to be humble and coming into conversations and recognizing that there are higher standards out there, the highest of being God. And we should let God's definition of beauty kind of rearrange us instead of it going the other way around.
Yeah, I think that those classical transcendental categories, being, truth, goodness, beauty. There's a sense which these are properties of things in the world, but really these are names for who and what God is. Yeah. If God is God, then God is beautiful. It's inherent in the concept. Just like if God is God, then he exists. Mm-hmm. And if God is God, then God is good. These are what we mean by these words. Something that transcends us and transcends everything. So if you're a Christian, there's a sense in which you have to think beauty is objective because this is what God is. Mm. And God is not only objective, but like the ultimate object, ultimately outside of ourselves, transcending us and beyond our perceptions. But I think also there's a caveat. I was thinking about this because it was about quantum physics and relativity and the participatory nature of the universe and the uncertainty principle and stuff like this. That's all beyond me. I can't get into any of that, but maybe some STEM students will hear this and they'll want to explore Heisenberg's insights about physics and how it relates to this. Mm. But the basic premise of this stuff is that in observing the world, we affect reality. So an electron is where it is based on whether you're looking at it or not, or whether you're perceiving it or not. That's a really, I know how badly I'm explaining the uncertainty principle here. We might say something like this. If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, it's a nonsensical question for a Christian. God was there to hear it. God was everywhere to hear it. So if we want to say, is beauty subjective? Is it the experience of being seen? Well, there is no objective beauty apart from a subjective perception of beauty because Christians think God is Trinitarian. Yeah. And so the Father has been seeing and appreciating the beauty of the Son from all eternity and the Son of the Father through the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And so this objective and perception of the objective reality, it's not like God was objectively beautiful, then he made us, and suddenly we could see it. No, God himself is an eternal perceiver, and God is three persons who perceive each other and perceive each other as good, as beautiful. And so there is no unperceived beauty. It is always in the perception, but not only in that. And so you end up with this sort of mystery, I think, that's like, how can God be three and one at once? How can we have a beauty that's unperceived? We can't. There's always a perceiver because God is omnipresent and God is Trinitarian. But then when God does create a world that is not himself, the Father and the Son are one in a way that the Father and Mount Everest are not one. And when God makes the world, nevertheless, his own goodness, his being, shines through that world. And so in Genesis, he says, and God saw that it was good, that it was beautiful. And God can then, even God as a perceiver, can recognize the beauty of a mountain, even though it's his own beauty shining through it.
Yeah, he's like, that was great.
Yeah, right?
It's very good. That's really good.
Very good.
Yeah.
So there's a sense in which that theological angle sort of definitively answers the question for a Christian, that our perceptions of beauty may be all sort of wacky and messed up and broken, and we may be blind to it. And we want to, I like your point a lot about being humble about this and not imagining, we can tell you exactly what beauty is since we know who God is. We don't know who God is. He's infinitely beyond us.
Right.
But whatever beauty is, it's what God is. And whatever God is, it's beautiful, shining through all these things.
Yes.
So let's see if we can land this. How do these philosophical and theological reflections on the nature of beauty matter for our workaday lives?
Everybody, no matter if you're aware of this or not, we all have a claim on this, or this impacts our life. Whether we think that beauty is just merely an opinion, or if it's an objective reality out there, because we live our lives in such a way that we want to we have values, we have standards, we will shape our priorities based on what we hold to be beautiful. And if we let culture dictate the terms and say that it's merely just opinion, then we're not going to be paying attention to the beautiful in our encounters with beauty and let it transform us and shape us. And we end up living shallow lives where we're not as tuned into how God can be communicating through the beautiful. So
yeah, I think that's right. Okay, I'll add to that and say, if we think of beauty as merely subjective, I think what you're saying points to this, it devalues it.
Yeah.
We appreciate it less if it's merely our taste.
Yeah.
If we think of it merely as subjective, we won't do something that's very natural to us about beauty, and that is to share it with other people. That when we see something beautiful, we naturally hunger to share it with others and to say, look at this. And if they can't see it or hear the beauty in it, we're like, look again, think about it, try it in this slot. Let me tell you a story. Look at how much I love it and see if you can catch some of this. And when we say it's subjective, we say, no, everybody just does what they want. Let's just leave it alone. And in doing so, we end up robbing each other of the chance to see and experience beauties that we would miss. I mean, I think about how much beauty I miss because I just have never been trained in this or that. Or like, I really wanted to be a fan of Prince because I knew Prince was good, but I just didn't get it. But because people kept raving about him and going on and on about him, I kept listening to him, and eventually I was like, I see it now. I like him now. I wouldn't like Prince if I thought beauty was just subjective, and I would miss out on all that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a trivial, funny example.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's a real pragmatic thing that if we say it's objective and it matters, and matters actually ultimately, then suddenly caring about beauty isn't just vanity or shallowness. No, this is a way of getting at a deep, meaningful life. And it's a way of sharing our humanity, to say, you're a fellow human. Part of what that means is that you have this ability to see this thing that I see, hear this thing that I hear. Can we come together around this and form communities and cultures and things? And so it leaves us less isolated in recognizing this.
That's so good. Yeah.